On your mark. Get ready. It's time to go the distance for sports news and sports review. Get ready. It's The Pitch.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Pitch. As always, I'm your host, John Fox. Mitch Sabbatelli is on standby right now, waiting for me to dive into the latest in the sports world right now. Hope everybody is doing well out there with the COVID-19 outbreak. Stay safe, sanitize, and yeah, let's dive into today's episode. How's it going there, Mitch?
Going good. I just Purelled up. I'm ready to roll. Let's go.
Perfect. All right, here we go. As a die-hard sports fan, Mitch, what have you missed so far about there being no sports?
Other than the paycheck, I think we're trying to, just the overall, I think the big thing about sports is the fact that once the sport is over, the big talk, the banter, I feel like the whole Tom Brady thing, that was huge, but because that was gone when this whole coronavirus thing was happening, nobody really cared too much because there was a bigger aspect. I think the thing about sports is sports kind of takes you away from what the actual news is. So when the actual news is so devastating, it's like the sports world kind of takes a back seat, whatever it is, So I think the whole banter in between games and just the, what's going on with the football offseason, what's going on with the baseball offseason, what's going on, who's going to get the highest seed in basketball and hockey. I think that whole in and out thing, and also I can't watch any more ESPN Classic games. They're just they're not fun. I just can't watch those games anymore.
Okay. Thoughts? Okay. What do you think what is going to be the first sport to come back from this suspension right now?
That's a good question. I think NBA is driving this whole thing. I think Adam Silver's the best commissioner in any sport. I think because that whole thing with the Rudy Gobert thing, it had to, in a weird way, I think by Rudy Gobert doing that, and obviously he was kind of being not the nicest person by doing that. And I don't think had he known what was going to go on, he wouldn't have done that. But by him doing that, I think it escalated the whole thing and it got people to really say, okay, listen, we got to cancel all sports here, because they were going to do a bunch of sports, basketball and hockey, where there was no fans. And I think the thing about sports is it's the one entity where there's so many people in one place. And, concerts happen here and there, but sports world's usually pretty much every day there's some kind of sporting event going on. And with those people not there is huge. So when Rudy Gobert did that, I think it really put the NBA on call, and which in turn made the NHL on call, and then was like, okay, the MLB has to bring it back. So I think NBA is driving this. I think NBA would be the first one to come back. They're talking about using the NBA for a couple of reasons, because it's indoors. Baseball is a little bit tougher because it needs a full season. Baseball's so acclimated where it needs all the stats, and all the nerds and everything need to make sure that the record books are all in the same way. And basketball and hockey is a little bit different, where obviously records are records, but it's not as ironclad as baseball with that 162-game season. I think with basketball, I think they're going to bring it back. I think they're going to do a little bit more of an exhibition type thing, where they're going to do a tournament. They're talking about a tournament in Las Vegas, which I think would be cool. But I think they're going to use a bridge season and then get to the playoffs. I think that's the first one coming back.
Perfect. Yeah, I completely get what you mean about baseball, because let's be realistic. You can't have a 100-game season or less than a 100-game season.
No,
that would completely ruin statistics.
Right.
You'd have guys hitting, barely. I mean, you'd have your guys hitting 30 home runs, but all the statistics would be, devastatingly low, and that's really not where we're at. It's about home runs. It's about RBIs. So we can't really have a baseball with low totals.
Right.
Honestly, if it goes on for months, which is what they're predicting right now, I mean, everybody's trying to be optimistic, but I mean, it's a harsh reality. This could go on for months. This could go on to the end of the summer. So at that point, I would just cancel the season, obviously, because you can't really play into like deep winter. So yeah, I would just cancel the season and then just take it as like an off year. As if they had a strike, as if there was something like that. But yeah, okay.
Well, one more thing there, Fox. I think the whole thing is with the baseball, people don't really know. It's all of the inside-out workers for every single game, the concession people, the broadcast people, all those kind of things is taking a big, big toll on people's money. So I think baseball is, I think in a weird grand scheme of things, with all the records said, I think they want people to get back to work, and I think the nation wants people to get back to work. And that's also going to go into baseball's favor of playing. But if this gets past June, they literally cannot have a season. I think they would rather let it go, kind of like when they were on strike back in 92, 93, and just cancel the season. I think it's better because once you start making the season smaller and I've heard going into December, that's going to make the next season shorter, and it's going to affect that whole season. So it's a big trickle-down effect.
Yeah, they were saying on like sports radio that they would, if they're going to play a baseball in MLB season this year, they would say we pick up in like 2 months from this point. They would be having doubleheaders every week. I don't know how many, but that's just too much baseball in a condensed period of time.
9 innings is almost too much. You can't.
I mean, Mitch, you work for the Red Sox. You work for the Celtics. This is terrible for you. I mean,
yeah, I mean, there's a lot more. I mean, I don't have a family, and I don't have a lot of bills going to people with that. But there's a lot of people that work day by day in the sports industry, and it's really a hardening toll where a lot of people are saying like, oh, they can just cancel the season. They can cancel the season. That goes back to my point where, yeah, you cancel the season, but people forget how much it's affecting not the players, not the coaches, but also the everyday workers. I mean, there's like 1,000 workers for baseball in a given game with everything. Also, the people in the bars and the restaurants, all that industry that goes into them. People, going there pregame, postgame, and stuff. It's a lot of money that's going down the tubes, and it's not just in the players' pockets. It's not just the record books. It's the money for the people outside of that that's big too. Mitch,
how are sports shows and other media outlets dealing with this right now with no sports?
That's good. I think with the whole thing, the Tom Brady thing really helped them out a little bit because it was getting really, really dry about sports. There's only so much talk you can have when nothing's going on, and by having that Tom Brady thing, it really kind of gave people another week there to talk about. It's going to be dry for a while. I mean, like I said, there's really as much classic games as they put out there. The thing that's good about sports is it's so you don't know what's going to happen, and once it happens, it's so matter of fact. You see, once a Super Bowl ends, I mean, in 2 days, people forget about the Super Bowl winner. Like, nobody really cares about the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl at this point. It's all about what's going to happen at the next thing. And I remember when the Patriots beat the Rams, it was like a couple days later, and like nobody cared. They're like, oh, is Gronk coming back? Is Gronk coming back? Nobody really cares. The whole classic game thing, yeah, that's great. But a lot of people that are diehard fans remember all those big moments, and the people that are not diehard fans aren't going to be watching those classic games. So it's a weird little crossroads there. And then also the media guys, they can't keep talking about, oh, what's going to happen. And they can play different games here and there, for the radio shows, and they can get in there. But it's like the big, ESPN, the Fox Sports that are really taking a hit because they don't have too much topics left. Once Tom Brady goes to Tampa Bay, once Phillip Rivers goes to Indy, and then there's other players out there. I mean, right now we'd be talking about the Houston Astros scandal. We'd be talking about all the baseball. Nobody even cares about the Houston Astros scandal right now.
Yeah,
that's huge. And that's big. Rob Manfred and the Houston Astros are taking a big win here because they don't really care. Rob Manfred came out saying that they were going to put out a thing about the Red Sox. Nobody cares about that. They only care about their own livelihood, which is obviously the more important thing. But sports media is really taking a hit.
Yeah, I like what you mentioned about the Astros. They're just quietly Peter Griffining out of the out of the spotlight right now,
Yeah.
and they're probably loving this. Not loving
Right, but
they're
just that they
loving not playing
being in
right
public
now,
eye,
and
yeah.
being the big story, the bad guys right now
Mhm.
for right now. Okay, last topic before we move on pertaining to the virus. Drew Brees he donates $5 million to Louisiana. Quick thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, this is huge. Like, this is not like first of all, Drew Brees, I think, is one of the most philanthropic players to any team there is. I don't think I've ever seen Tom Brady or any like Aaron Rodgers. I know he owns part of the Milwaukee Bucks, but I've never seen a quarterback or any player really give this money to a city. And he donated to Katrina. New Orleans is a little bit more of a poverty-stricken town, and especially the suburbs of New Orleans. And he always gives to the New Orleans city and the suburbs. Remember when with Katrina, he was always giving money. I mean, this guy makes a lot of money, $20 million, but to give $5 million, a quarter of your paycheck to one item, is a huge thing. And I think it really shows how much he means to New Orleans. I think that was huge for them. And you see people in like different talk shows, tearing up about it, which is kind of strange, but it is cool to see an athlete do that, and it's a lot more than hopefully it brings other people and people with a lot of money to do stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so moving on to the NFL. Bruce Arians, he has stated that Antonio Brown will not be a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. Should he reconsider, Mitch? Your thoughts?
Well, there's a lot of things with Antonio Brown. I know that Tom Brady is still in relation, keeping close tabs with Antonio Brown, where at least he was, even in his days after he got released by the Patriots, he was still in touch. And now, I obviously, I don't know what that relationship is with him and Antonio. I know he would obviously, it's just my speculation, that he would definitely embrace Antonio and Brown coming back. And I know Antonio would love to play with Tom Brady. But I think the difference is do the Bucs really, really need Antonio Brown? And obviously, that will put them over the top offensively. I know they just re-signed and Ndamukong Suh again, but Chris Godwin's going to have a huge year. I mean, he's going to be in the slot. It's going to be outside. And then Mike Evans is just going to be a great season for those two. And then you have O.J. Howard and Cameron Brate. You don't really need Antonio Brown, whereas when the Patriots were there, he was really that spark plug that was putting them over the top. He was like this year's Gronkowski. And once he left, you realized the offense really took a big step back. So I think Antonio Brown coming back wouldn't really affect too much. I think when I'm saying that is, let's say everything's clear with the whole all of his off the field issues. Let's say that's all on the wayside where they bring him back, they reinstate him into the league. I'm taking that out of consideration. But let's say that's all gone and he is a free agent. I think by having him, he's just extra at this point where they don't really need that kind of player. And I think if you do have him, you could put him in the slot and outside. It would be a really, really good addition, but you don't need Antonio Brown. I think Bruce Arians that was a huge get to get Tom Brady. I think they can get other guys around him. I know they're looking for like Dion Lewis and stuff. They can get enough people around him.
Yeah, I agree with you. They definitely don't need Antonio Brown's baggage. I mean,
Right.
I think he would definitely one up Jameis Winston. He's not the crab leg stealing type of guy. He's like we don't even need to talk about what type of guy he is.
Yeah.
So moving on, Greg Zuerlein just signs with the Cowboys, the Dallas Cowboys, for 3 years. Thoughts on this acquisition?
Yeah, I mean, this is a big one. I mean, the Cowboys really, I mean, this is really underrated for like a special teams player. The Rams have had one of the best special teams units with him and Hecker for quite some time. And now when he is gone, and the Cowboys haven't really have a really good kicker that I can really think of, and since like maybe Nick Folk when he first started, and now they haven't really had a good, I mean, Brett Maher, he was terrible. And getting Greg Zuerlein is huge for not only field goals, but also kickoff positioning and stuff like that. And I think it's really going to make it easier on the special teams, knowing that if Dak Prescott, is in a 3rd and 11, where before they were like, okay, we need to pick this up. Now he can go for 5 to 6 yards if they do get Dak Prescott back, and bring Greg Zuerlein onto the field and get him a little extra points that way. I think that's actually a huge move and really underrated move that nobody's really talking about, but I love that move.
Yeah, perfect. Great take. Moving on to the NBA. If we get back to this season, Mitch, are the Celtics for real?
Oof, that's tough. When somebody says for real, I always think that means
for real.
Are they championship contenders?
Go a ways in the playoff. Don't lose within the first 2 rounds.
Right. No, I think if I had to put, I'm not gambling right now, but if I had to put money on it to say that the Celtics were going to go far into the playoffs, I would say have them lose in the Eastern Conference Finals right now to the Milwaukee Bucks. I think that would change it, especially if the playoffs come and we don't know exactly how much games they're going to be per series. We don't know the whole entire playoff whole situation right now. We don't even know if they're coming back, first off. But I think right now, Philly has too much things going on. Ben Simmons is still hurt. Joel Embiid has always had issues off the court. I don't think he's doing too well right now. I think they don't have enough. Losing Jimmy Butler was huge for them. Indiana always seems to fade. Miami doesn't have that big gun other than Jimmy Butler and Bam. And I think the Celtics are the second best team in the East. I think they would lose to Giannis and the Bucks in a 7-game series. If it gets downgraded to like a 3-game series, maybe they could win it. Maybe they get lucky on the road and then win the home game. So I would say that they are for real. I will say that the Bucks are the better team. I think Jason Tatum elevating his game to be a number 1 is huge for them. And then having Jaylen Brown and Kemba, I think Jaylen's really elevated. And that was the whole thing. If Jaylen and Jason Tatum could elevate their games, it would make the Celtics a lot better. I don't think Kemba has been as good as people thought he was going to be, but when you need a shot, he hits it. He needs to be a little more durable come the playoff time. Come playoff time, he's never missed a game before this year, and now he has missed a lot. Obviously, once this thing ends, everyone's going to be healthy. It's going to be a clean slate. So I think they're going to be for real. But I do think they lose to the Bucks, in a 7-game series.
So having said that, what's the biggest difference for the Celtics this year as opposed to last year? Who's the biggest difference maker?
Not having Kyrie Irving as the leader there is huge because Kyrie, not only him, choking in the games, but it was off the court. Him with all his antics, talking about the kids as if he wasn't 2 years older than them, referring to Jaylen Brown as a kid when he's 26 and Jaylen Brown's 23. It was just weird. There was a whole back and forth there. He's not a good leader. I think you've seen that in Brooklyn as well, how he was calling out other players. He's just not a good leader. He needs that big, an actual leader like LeBron James, like Kawhi Leonard on his team for him. He's a great player. He's just not a leader, and he's a really good number 2. He's just not a 1, and he could be a 1 if they had a second leader on that team. And we don't know if Kevin Durant is that guy yet. And I think by having him gone, it's really giving Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum a chance to thrive, and they have. And I think Jason Tatum elevating his game to where it is now is the big difference.
Who do you think is their biggest opponent?
I think on the grand scheme of things, I would say that one of the LA teams in the West would win. I think that Clippers are the most deep team in the league. I think they have the most combination of veterans, defense, and, guys who, like Kawhi, he's so battle-tested. If you need a bucket, he can get you the bucket. Paul George is going to be great in the playoffs. I think Patrick Beverley can shut down anyone. I think the Lakers are right there. I think with the Lakers, though, they need LeBron and Davis to be LeBron and Davis every single game. And obviously with this huge layoff with the coronavirus, it's going to help them a little bit in a weird way. It's going to help LeBron, keep that durability. But I think they really could have used a third guy. I don't think Kyle Kuzma is that guy. I think he's not a little bit overrated. And I think that's a huge thing. I think Clippers are definitely the best team in all of basketball, but I think the Bucks are the biggest competition in the East.
Perfect. Moving on to NHL. If we get back, pretty much the same question that I'm going to ask you that I just asked about the Celtics. Are the Bruins for real?
They definitely are for real. They should have won the series last year, and they got obviously, with with Ryan O'Reilly. I think he had a great series last year, and he was so good. And I think the top line kind of faded. I think with this layoff, it's going to help that top line a lot. David Pasternak's elevated his game. He's one of the best 3 players in the entire league right now in the NHL. I think Brad Marchand and Bergeron are helping him well. I think the second and third line are huge for the Bruins. Tuukka Rask is having another Vezina type year. But I think Charlie Coyle and DeBrusk and those guys and Krejci in the playoffs is going to be the difference maker. Because I think last year, the first line really didn't really bring it in the playoffs. I think this year with the layoff, they would. And I think Pasternak's been a lot better this year in the power play. So I think that they are for real. But I think last year they got the benefit of a lot of teams fading early in the first round, and they ended up facing like teams like Carolina and Columbus who aren't that good. Yeah. But Tampa Bay is as good as they were last year. They just had a really bad start. I think they are just as good as the Bruins. They were easily the hardest threat.
So you'd say their biggest challenge, that was the next question, their biggest challenge is the Lightning.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Stamkos has been hurt, but now with this whole layout, I don't know how that's going to happen. I think he might come back. They're the most talented team on the ice. I just think the Bruins have, since Bruce Cassidy has taken over the last 3 years, they've won more games than any other team. And I think they have the most chemistry with each other. It's going to be a combination between chemistry and talent against Tampa. I think Tampa's a little more talented, but I think Bruins are the better team, and I would go with the Bruins there.
So to close us out with NHL, who's the biggest difference maker for the Bruins this year?
I think Pasternak's becoming one of the best players in the entire league. Last year he was one of the other guys. He was just evolving his game to be a top goal scorer.
What was their record when they left off, and how many goals did he have? It's just a rough estimate. I'm not looking at it right now.
He was right near. I don't know. He was right near 50. I think he was like 47 or
That's
something. So
terrible.
He was right there.
I mean, it's terrible that this happens right now.
Right. I mean, he would have hit 60. I think he would have hit 60, and I think they were right there. I mean, right now they're the Presidents. They had the most points. They had 100 points, and they were going to be the President's Trophy. And right now, I guess there's a rule in the book that states that if a season ever ends with whatever, a lockout or any, obviously virus probably isn't in the book, but with whatever problem that makes the season end early, whoever has the highest record would be the Stanley Cup champion. So Bruins would theoretically be the Stanley Cup champion if that ever happened. I don't think they would ever accept that championship, but right now they would be the champions. And the reasons for that is because Pasternak's been so good in the power play. And I think right now with him elevating his game, it's kind of given Bergeron a little bit less as the center, and he can kind of relax and make sure he stays healthy. And then but I think DeBrusk and Charlie Coyle are huge. When they come back, they need to really elevate their game. They haven't this season.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. Moving on to our final topic of the day, MLB. And right now, Mitch, I see you smiling obviously already, Mitch, because it's time for a little Red Sox rant, something that we love to do pretty much every a couple times a year. Let's talk about the Red Sox right now to close us out. Let's talk about their awful offseason right now. They lose Mookie Betts to the Dodgers. They don't go ahead and acquire a starting pitcher when they know that Chris Sale was banged up before they put him on the injured reserve for Tommy John. Thoughts just go.
I think this is the worst offseason I've seen. So I've been a fan since 2001. I've been a fan of all sports since 2001. It's the worst offseason I have seen in a franchise, going from a team that was one of the best teams ever in 2018 to just over a year later to have this kind of problem where they're almost, putting all of their eggs in the basket that there won't be a season that's that bad. Chaim Bloom came in, and he really inherited a bad situation. Dave Dombrowski, everyone knows what he does. He takes the prospects and trades those prospects, gets players, and they win with those players. He won with the Marlins. He should have won with Detroit, and he won last year. He did his job. That's what he does. He takes prospects, he brings them, he trades those, and he wins titles and gets the team in that consideration. He's not a long-term type player, GM. And when he was gone, I think they blamed it on David Dombrowski, which is a little unfair because all of those moves that Dombrowski does also has to go through management to make in ownership to make sure that they all go through. And they kind of blamed it on him. With him going away, it really hurt Chaim Bloom's chances to do anything. And then when they come up there and they say, hey, by the way, we're going to need you to trade our best player that we've had since Carly Yastrzemski. And also, by the way, we've been cheating the last 2 years, and we didn't want you to know that. But we're going to have you come in there and fix that up. It's a lot to ask for a guy who's just in his 30s taking over for David Dombrowski, or a team that just did that and won all those games. And then Alex Cora thing happens, and the Houston Astros things happens, and people realize that he was the big mastermind with the Astros thing. So theoretically, obviously, they're going to be like, oh, well, what did he do with the Red Sox? That was a major issue, and Bloom had to deal with that. They traded Mookie Betts, and there was a big issue with the trade, and then they had to, lose Graterol and make another trade with the Dodgers, a big, big PR disaster. And now they're just trying to salvage whatever they have left. Chris Sale, I think the reason why he is going for the Tommy John is because they are hoping, well, not hoping, but in the event that the season is shortened or lost, they're going to use him, cancel his season this year, obviously with the Tommy John, and then bring him back next year, hopefully as the ace. But right now, I don't even know what their rotation. I guess it's like A-Rod, Nathan Eovaldi, who hasn't been healthy in 3 years.
I completely just forgot because, in my mind, the last thing with the Red Sox is Chris Sale going on the injured reserve for the Tommy John surgery. I totally forgot that they traded, along with Mookie Betts, the David Price. I mean, I don't really care, honestly, about David Price. To me, he's an average pitcher during the regular season. He had that. Yes, he had that.
But he is a pitcher.
Yeah, I know. He's a top 3 pitcher in a rotation.
Right.
That's what I'd say. But he's just an awful personality. He's frankly an ass. He's an ass. With all the off the field shenanigans that he constantly gets into, just being just a loser. To be honest, he had that one great pitching performance, in the World Series. Not one, I mean specifically that
he
year.
Was great.
He rose to the occasion. But other than that, I don't think he's a big loss.
I kind of compare him to John Lackey when they had him come in there, and he helped himself out with the 2013 season, and then Price helped him out in 2018. Obviously, Price did a little bit more than Lackey did in those 2 years, but Price obviously also was making $30 million. I think losing Price is huge, but I think another really underrated thing is, as bad as he was, losing Rick Porcello, the fact that he never got hurt ever, never was hurt. You could always throw him out there every 5th day, and he could go even every 4th day if you wanted to. He never got hurt. He only got $10 million. A couple of years ago, he won the Cy Young. He's been below average since then. But the one thing you need with a below average pitcher is innings, eating those innings, and he does that. He will always get you into the 6th inning, 7th inning, maybe he gives up 5 or 6 runs. But that's in the long-term scheme of things, you need those guys to eat those innings. Now they're banking on E-Rod. They're banking on Eovaldi, who hasn't been healthy in 3 years. They're banking on Martin Perez as their 3rd guy. Colin McHugh, he was decent 2 years ago with the Astros. The Astros cast him up. I don't even know who the 5th starter is. Ryan Weber. I have no idea. So as good as – I feel like the offense is underrated in a weird way. Losing Mookie Betts, you still have – Devers, Bogarts, Benintendi,
we still have the pieces.
But that pitching is so bad, and that bullpen is still so bad.
Yeah.
That pitching is going to be really, really bad. So, in a weird way, let Sale go at Tommy John. It's an off. It's one of the worst off seasons I've ever seen for a team.
To close this out, it's pretty bad as a Red Sox fan that you're actually hoping that the season is just lost. That's pretty bad. I mean, because honestly, we'd be second to last, or we'd be right there with the Orioles or Blue Jays.
I think we would win like 82 games. I think we'd be right there. Maybe fighting for a second wild card, but it wouldn't be worth it.
70-something. All right. Well,
and that would only be if they got another pitcher.
We're out of time here. So until next time, great show today. Great show. Until next time, everyone out there in America, throughout the whole world, stay safe. Stop the spread of COVID-19. And until next time, guys, you're watching The Pitch. Follow us on everything.